restrictions stemming from geographic distance or temporal availability, offering them a platform to share experiences, ask questions, and receive and provide social support. In effect, social media platforms are whole big online or virtual communities, but they're very big, so they're more, we wouldn't consider like everyone who's on Instagram like that making up one community. So it's better to think of those platforms very much as platforms on which you can have online communities, which might be based around a number of different things. Now, if this was a anthropology degree or a sociology degree or a psychology degree, we'd be doing entire modules on why communities matter. Obviously, we're just touching on it for this. But as human beings, we have always been part of communities. We exist as part of communities. They're very, very important to us, whether they're online or physical. They give us a sense of belonging. We'll have shared traditions, shared rituals, so we understand each other when you're in a community. And you have a sense of duty or obligation to your community, and that's how society functions, basically. It's all about people feeling like they have an obligation to each other, or duty to each other, to the community, and just having that real sense of belonging. That's what, it's just generally, as humans, we tend to want to be part of a community, or many communities. So, everyone has strong ties and weak ties with people in their community. So strong ties are your family members, your close family members, close friends, people you know very well. You might have a strong tie with some of your tutors, with former teachers and people that you've grown up with. You might, and then weak ties are people that you consider acquaintance, formal connections through work, a friend of a friend, or someone that your friends follow. So I might be considered a weak tie, whereas the person sat next to you might be a strong tie. When it comes to your career, to life, both your strong and your weak ties kind of help you in different ways. So it's important to kind of, your weak ties that you have in communities can be just as important to you as your strong ties. So these are things that kind of impact or depend on whether you have strong or weak ties. So if you're in a very close-knit group and you all consider yourself that you have very strong ties, then you might participate a lot more in that group, spend more time in that group because of all else. Whereas if you've got weak ties, you might sort of dip in and out occasionally. If you're sharing content with strong ties, if you were sharing content on a private profile, where all the people who are seeing it are strong ties, you might carefully craft the content before sharing. But if it's going out to lots and lots of weak ties, you might not. You might, as an individual, so you might just you might spend less time, but you might add an emoji, but you might not go in depth into the group and engage in. It's about the depth of how you're participating in the group. You might just sort of pop in. To a weak tie, you might give a like on their Instagram post, but if it's a strong tie, you might actually spend time kind of talking to them, commenting on what they've posted. When we're with our ties, when we're in a group, will share personal stories and feelings. Might not be all the time. You might just do this when you need it. And obviously with strong ties, there's more of an expectation that they'll be there for you to listen to those stories and feelings. They'll care more about it, whereas with weak ties, they're not necessarily going to respond in the same way. With strong ties, this is about intimacy. With strong ties, there's a familiarity and mutual confiding where secrets are shared. So with strong ties, you can kind of trust them to share your secrets with them. There might be in-jokes with strong ties where you might make comments that don't mean anything to anyone else. And other people on the outside that might be like, oh, I wish I knew what that was referring to, but I don't know because I don't have a strong enough ties. So that excludes the people that's not in the group. So we sort of reinforce our strong ties by having those sorts of those in jokes and things like that. So most of those things are stronger with strong ties. But one of the things that works for both strong and weak ties is that this idea of reciprocity, reciprocating between one another. So you're going to help each other. So so for example, I am a weak tie, but you could add me on LinkedIn, and if you needed some help with something in the UK or something, then I would help you. I would consider that weak tie enough that if you sent me a message on LinkedIn, we're a connection, I would give you some help. Especially if you've spoken to me when we have a bit more of an informal session on Friday. Reciprocating and helping each other, that's not just about strong ties. And in fact, sometimes we're more inclined to help our weak ties. So we're more inclined to offer help to someone who is a weak tie. And the reason for that are things like, if a strong tie, so if a family member asks for help, like getting in contact with an employer, then if I do it, I would feel obligated to see that through and to really help them. And if I wasn't able to help them, I feel like that would affect our strong tie. But with a weak tie, I could put in the good word. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't really affect me. So interestingly, when you have a wide network of weak ties like that, it can be very good for your career and your network. Because again, we're not doing a psychology course, but it's really important to the way that digital marketing works, how all these things work. It's just understanding that sometimes it is more beneficial to someone to reach out to an almost stranger or just an acquaintance to get that help that you need. There is less of a sense of obligation, which makes it easier to help. And one of the many weird paradoxes that we discussed in these courses. So social capital is about the value of the interactions between two or more people. So if you have a lot of social capital, if you are active within a community, if you have a lot of relationships with people, whether they're strong or weak, if you are known within your community, you've got a lot of social capital, and that can help make things happen. So if you've got a big network and you also engage in that network, then when you need help, you're more likely to get it when you need that support. So having access to these communities and being active in them can give you a lot of social capital. So I'd like to know a quick poll. Oh, wait, it's not working. Why is it not working? What's going on there? it just needed a bit of a reboot. This will probably work. There we go. I'd like to know if you remember, so this isn't just about being on Instagram or being on Facebook or whatever, it's about being in something that you would consider an online community. It doesn't really matter, it's whether you consider it an online community or not that's important. So just a quick yes or no. Also, can I just say that I very appreciate the extra hoodies and layers that people have gotten today to allow me to have the room a bit colder. I'm guessing it's likely to stay at 100 or near 100%. Oh, we've got a no. We've got a no. Interesting. I might ask this same poll again after we've done some more look into what an online community is. A lot more than 14 of you in the room. Let's get some more answers, even if it's going to end up staying around this percentage. Interestingly, taking part in a poll or a survey like this is actually actively participating in a community. So when we part of like doing little interactions like this are actually about fostering that sort of sense of community. It's useful for me to see whether people are what the answers are, but it's all part of that psychology of being part of a community, being part of something. So that's one of the reasons why we like to do these little questionnaires. There's definitely more than 16 of you in the room. Come on, let's get it to 20. I'm going to move on when we get to 20. I'm just going to sit down. Sit down until we get to 20. Just proves that you're awake as well, which is also really helpful. 17. There are 39 people in the room, so it's not unreasonable to ask this to get to 20. Two more, come on, two more people. If you haven't done it, let's do it. Let's get this done. Participate into this little community activity. 19, one more to go. Love it. There's another poll coming straight after this, by the way, so. Okay, 20, right, okay. Yes, I will be interested. So we've got a couple of people who have said no, which is interesting because when we go into the sorts of types of online communities, you might find that you kind of are, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a formal group or anything like that. I am in an absurd number of online communities. I'm in online communities related to, maybe 6 separate groups all about paddleboarding. I'm in but within those groups there's one that is an actual physical group that I go and participate in, and another one where I communicate a lot, and the others I don't. So my social capital is greater in the ones that I actively participate in or not. I'm in groups that talk about swimming in rivers in the UK, which is horrible by the way, which I'm sure it also is here. And and I mean one's related to music, and in some of the groups related to music that I've been a member of in the past, we've had such strong ties that I've gone to stay with people in America and Australia because of those online communities. So that's all, again, it's all part of that sort of social capital of being able to use those online communities to benefit. And in my case, when I was young, when I was your age, and I was traveling, I did a lot of traveling around the world, and I used those online communities to give me both places to stay and people to hang out with and things to do while I was there, which is great. So online communities some of them are just for casual browsing, and some of them can really, really help you in your life. But yes, I am in far too many online communities. So the next one, this one is obviously going to be a lot less, I think, is whether you've created or managed an online community. I'm curious about this one because it will help give,
Next question.
if you have, you'll have an insight into sort of how tricky it can be to kind of manage an online community, to get people to really use it, and that's what we're going to talk quite a bit about, the sort of challenges of creating and managing a successful online community. It's quite a few. I mean, I know we've only had 7 responses so far, but that's a lot of people creating online communities.
No, I was with manager. I am just fine. Okay.
Can anyone who said yes, is anyone prepared to stick your hand up and tell me about that community? Because I'd love to know more if anyone is prepared
It's kind
to tell me about their community. Someone be brave. Tell me. I
No.
want to know.
I don't want to know. It's like a heat rock in my hand.
Go on. We know each other well now. We've been here for 3 days together. Oh, was that hand going up? Are you going to tell me? Yes. Excellent. I can tell. I can see it in your eyes.
So it's kind of like I'm not the one who created it. I manage it for quite a time. So this was my Facebook group. It's in Facebook. I manage a group of my high school class. So
Okay.
like my alma teacher told me that whenever there's the announcement or something, I will send it to the group and try to get people to look at it so that they can know what's going on.
And is there much two-way communication? Do other people participate in the group?
Yeah, it's kind of hard, like because they don't really care. They just look and then yeah, we know. So I just put in there, post in there, and if they don't know, it's their job. Like I try to get them to communicate, but it's very hard.
It is. It's very, very hard. Absolutely. It is really hard to get. So I manage quite a few online communities that are similar. So we have online, so for the courses that I teach in the UK at Leeds Beckett, we have Facebook groups for each of the year groups. So when we have announcements, we send them by email, we send them from My Beckett, and we also put them on Facebook groups because we want to reach them in as many places as possible. And even getting a like on, we can see when people have seen the posts, but even getting a like or any sort of reaction is so hard. And so one of the things we're going to look at now is the things you need to consider when you are developing online communities and then managing them. So I have, so in my cycling club and also a choir that I sing in, I've built the websites for those organisations, and largely we communicate via WhatsApp, and we thought it might be a nice idea to have a forum and a members area on the website to try and give people a more structured way to communicate because not everyone's on WhatsApp. So here, no one is on WhatsApp, but yeah, in the UK most people are, but not everyone in those groups are. So we're trying to find another way to get people to be able to, but it's so much work. It's basically a full-time job, and no one was getting paid for this. So they've kind of disappeared. So it is very, very challenging to create, develop and manage an online community. But basically, this is what an online community might be. Generally, they are called groups in lots of places. So on social media, you'll have groups. Often you'll have even on like WhatsApp where you have a group chat, you can still set a name for the group, a profile picture, a description of it. So you can add your logo. You can decide whether the group is public or closed. So whether anyone's going to see any content in it, or whether it's going to be closed. And that's when you need to think about those strength of ties, because you can potentially have much stronger ties in a closed community where people are prepared to share their secrets and things like that. If your group is for people, so for example with like my cycling club, the Facebook group and the WhatsApp group are only for people who are actually members of the physical cycling club. So membership approval for something like that, we requested where someone requests to be a member and they're only accepted if they're actually a physical member of that group, or if they've paid or something like that. But it might not. So if it's just a group of people who like paddleboarding in a certain area, they'll just let anyone join. And you'll have roles, which are really important to have people who have specific roles within the group. So for those of you who have created or managed an online community, you'll know that if you are the only person who's doing it, it's a big job. It's very, very difficult. So you'll have an admin who can delete the group, who can set all the changes to the profile images and things like that. But you might have other roles like moderators, community managers, ambassadors, who might just be people who join the group and really participate very well. Some groups will have content approval, so posts will only appear if they've been approved. That can be challenging if, for example, on local groups for local areas, if someone is posting a message to say, I've lost a cat or I found a cat, it might be very time sensitive and it might not get approved until a day later, which can be tricky. So if you're going to have content approval, you need to think about resourcing the moderation of that. And generally, wherever you set up your group, you'll generally have insights that will show you how engaged your members are, which is it's like any form of, like if you've got a community based around your brand, your business, then like any digital marketing activity, you need to be monitoring what's actually happening on it. Otherwise, you could be spending your time, resources, your money on something that isn't valuable. So monitoring engagement is very, very important. So this is an example of the life cycle of a community. So there needs to be a reason for it. You need to have very clear goals as to why you're setting up a community. Like anything, you shouldn't just go, well, we can have a Facebook group, so let's have a Facebook group. You need to really think about what you want to get from that group. Then you need to decide the structure of it. So is it going to be a Facebook group? Is it going to be a forum on your website? Is it going to be a Snapchat chat? Is it going to be is it just going to be everyone using the same a certain hashtag on X or on Instagram? What is the structure of your group? Then so you've created it. At this point, it might just be you being the admin. Once it starts to grow, that's when you would be thinking about, okay, what are the management roles that we need? What sorts of challenges are we facing? So what sort of moderation do we need? How many moderators do we need to keep up with the content? And then you might keep on changing that over time. Nurturing new members. So often when you join a group on Facebook now, there'll be a post saying, let's welcome our new members, and everyone will be tagged. Effectively, it's a bit of a reminder that the group exists, because someone signs up to it, but then they might forget they've signed up to it. So it's a way to make them feel seen and noticed. And then maybe ask questions and do some interaction to get those new members to start talking and to start participating in the group. And then once it's been around for a while and it has, it's reached maturity, you might have community ambassadors, which will be people within the group who are very active, who really love your brand, who understand. I think one of the key things is community ambassadors need to understand the purpose, the goals of your group, because they're effectively working for free for you. So you need to appoint people who are aligned with your brand and aligned with what you're trying to do. And when you create a strong community, it's amazing, like where people really come to rely on it, they really have that sense of belonging, so they want the group to do well. So if you've got a mature group and someone is appointed like a community ambassador for it, if you've got the right people, they'll be very happy, they'll be honoured to have that role, and they'll be very happy to basically do that work for free for you. But you also need to establish as a brand whether it is serving its purpose. Is the time and the money that you're putting into it actually working for the reasons why you set it up in the first place? Generally then, at some point in the life cycle, it might be within a month, or it might be within a decade, or who knows, it might be for longer. Once the community is on the decline, it might be because people aren't as interested in your brand, in which case you need to do more work on your digital marketing. It might be because people have stopped using that platform, so you might need to think about closing it and restarting it elsewhere. Or you might just think, actually, do you know what, this is not serving the purpose it needs to anymore, we'll just close it. So when you're developing an online community on another platform, like Facebook, you're not generally in control of who sees the content. Even in a closed group as well, people can take screenshots and share them, and there's never, basically you're lacking that sort of control, especially when you're on a social media site. It's very difficult when you're using another platform. There are lots of benefits to it in that that's where the people are. You don't have setup costs in terms of using that platform. You're using like Facebook's servers, you're using their marketing basically to have a place where you develop your online community. But they might just suddenly decide one day, right, we're not having groups anymore, or we're not having business groups, or we've arbitrarily changed our rules, which means that your group no longer works. So you could have put a lot of time and money into creating this online community, and then because of something completely out of your control, it's gone. And the other thing is, of course, that if you haven't created a community, someone else can create a community around your brand, but it could be a fan site, or it could be a community based on people who don't like your products or your service. And you have no control over that either. If it's been created by a fan, the fans, then perhaps you could see if you can get involved. But if you've got your own online community and they set up another one, then that also might say that something is wrong with the one that you're creating, if people want to be involved.